in the 70s and 80s, Times Square was a pretty dicey place.
42nd Street was a zoo of the most highly articulated, different kind of weirdos imaginable.
This was a place for drug dealers, there were sex shops and peep shows and runaway kids. It was called the Deuce.
This is the story of the rejuvenation of Times Square. It's taken an agonizingly long 30 years. At the same time, when it finally did happen, it happened amazingly quickly. We're coming to the end of it now with the final skyscraper that's just opening at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, and with it finding a tenant for the last of the historic theaters, the Times Square Theater on the north side of 42nd Street.
In the 70s and 80s, 42nd Street was really sleazy. And so there were drug dealers, there were peep shows, sex places. In, I think it was 1982, Rolling Stone magazine named this block the sleaziest block in America.
At the height of the downturn for Times Square, you had a movie like Taxi Driver, which illustrated just how risky, how dangerous, and perhaps how exciting Times Square could be in that period.
All the animals come out at night.
To me, Times Square in 1980 was the sort of one of the kind of loci of street culture in New York City. My wife Jane and I moved to Times Square, specifically 43rd Street and 8th Avenue in 1980. And when I moved there, I was developing a movie which was later called Wild Style. And in the mid-'80s, my son was born, and I went and got myself a little handy-cam video camera and was shooting his birthdays, but also drawn to the window every time I would hear something going on, like transvestites arguing under my window, fighting with police. It's a kind of real diary of 4 years in Times Square. There's a couple scenes like some shots thrown and a guy goes blacked out right on the concrete in the middle of 8th Avenue and 43rd Street. We're really looking at a drug deal gone bad and who's there trying to like find the guy's drugs, and you know, for 2 minutes the camera's running and there's no idea of any sort of one in control of Times Square.
In 1980, the state and the city said, okay, we're going to revitalize Times Square. And promptly, things moved very slowly.
The big thing that happened was Prudential Life Insurance of America put up $241 million to build the project and allowed us to condemn this property. So all of this, 13 acres, was taken by the state.
Along about 1990, a developer was required to start building the first of 4 skyscrapers right in the center of Times Square. But the economy was horrible. We were in the middle of a steep recession, and they didn't want to start building a building that nobody was going to occupy. Originally, they wanted to put 4 office towers right smack in the middle of Times Square that resembled really suburban office towers.
We didn't want to do that. We wanted to make it into the chaotic, popular, overcrowded, 24/7 layered place that it had been in its heyday. And we were allowed to redo the plan, but we had to find real tenants. So we sent out letters to 800 big entertainment companies, small entertainment companies, not-for-profits, and then we found Disney.
Disney was very important because it became sort of the flypaper for other entertainment companies that would be interested in Times Square.
It was a hard decision for them because the street was still really sleazy by the time they agreed to sign up. But we had the best Broadway theater in New York, in the New Amsterdam Theater, and they signed on.
It's Disney that brought Madame Tussauds, that brought AMC Theaters, and other companies sort of sat up and take notice for the first time that there was something happening here.
And that just turned it around. I mean, I think the public's perception that this place could really revive itself just changed.
Times Square today is a funny place. In a way, it's a victim of its success. There are so many tourists and so many office workers in town now that it's very hard in the middle of the day to walk through Times Square.
Who doesn't want Times Square crowded? You don't want it to be just a place for, drug addicts. You want the place to be packed. It's the showcase of the planet. It's beautiful to me. I think it's fantastic. And I don't knock Times Square and say, oh, it was so great in the 70s. I mean, I like the fact that it's a big corporate wasteland of entertainment.